Judgments have I laid before me. I have stuck to thy testimonies. O Lord, put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments. When thou shalt enlarge my heart. Teach me, O Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep it unto the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart. Make me to go in the path of thy commandments, for therein do I.
Hello, good day. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Studies. We're continuing our study in Exodus, and we're in the legal portion here. And sitting at the feet of the schoolmaster, which is how Paul describes the law. It is, though it is for the Christian, it is passed away as a way to please God. We cannot please God by keeping commandments. We can only please him through faith in Jesus Christ. Anyways, let's stop with that and start reading. There'll be plenty of time to talk about it. Verse 1. If a man shall steal an ox or a sheep and kill it or sell it, he shall restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. If a thief be found breaking up and be smitten that he die, there shall no blood be shed for him. If the sun be risen upon him, there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. If the theft be certainly found in his hand alive, whether it be ox or ass or sheep, he shall restore double. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, let me just turn that off. I don't know what that is. That could be important. I don't know. But this is more important. All right. If a man, verse 25. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, and shall put in his beast, and shall feed in another man's field, or the best of his own field, of the best of his own field, and of the best of his own vineyard shall he make restitution. If fire break out, and catch in thorns, so that the stacks of corn, or the standing corn, or the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. If a man shall deliver unto his neighbor money or stuff to keep, and it be stolen out of the man's house, if the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judge, to see whether he have put his hand into his neighbor's goods. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, or any manner of lost thing, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges. And whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep, and it die, or be hurt, or driven away, no man seeing it, then shall an oath of the Lord be between them both, that he hath not put his hand unto his neighbor's goods, and the owner of it shall accept thereof, and he shall not make it good. And if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. If it be torn in pieces, then let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which is torn, which was torn. And if a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. But if the owner thereof be with it, he shall not make it good. If it be an hired thing, it came for his hire. Or whatever. And if a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, and lie with her, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. And if her father utterly refuse to give her unto him, he shall pay money according to the dowry of virgins. Thou shalt not suffer a witch to live. Whosoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. Thou shalt neither vex a stranger, nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Ye shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. If thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all unto me, I will surely hear their cry. And my wrath shall wax hot, and I will kill you with the sword, and your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. If thou lend money to any of my people that is poor by thee, thou shalt not be unto him as an usurer, neither shalt thou lay upon him usury. If thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down. Where we'll talk about them when we get there. Some of them are a little bit, the language is a little opaque. For that is... let me read 26 again because it connects. If thou at all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, thou shalt deliver it unto him by that the sun goeth down. By the time that the sun goeth down. For that is his covering only. It is his raiment for his skin. Wherein shall he sleep? And it shall come to pass when he crieth unto me, I will hear, for I am gracious. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits, and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Likewise shalt thou do with thine oxen, and with thy sheep. 7 days it shall be with his dam. On the 8th day thou shalt give it me. And ye shall be holy men unto me. Neither shall ye eat any flesh that is torn of the beasts of the field. Ye shall cast it to the dogs. I think I mentioned that. Like, if your animal gets strangled somehow or something, falls in a pit, breaks its neck, it's for the dogs. I'm going to keep reading because I feel like we're going to move quickly through that. I could be wrong, but let's just read a little more. Thou shalt not raise a false report. Put not thine hand with the wicked to be an unrighteous witness. Thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil. Neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment. Neither shalt thou countenance a poor man in his cause. If thou meet thine enemy's ox or his ass going astray, thou shalt surely bring it back to him again. If thou see the ass of him that hateth thee lying under his burden, and wouldest forbear to help him, thou shalt surely help with him. Thou shalt not wrest the judgment of thy poor in his cause. Keep thee far from a false matter, and the innocent and righteous slay thou not, for I will not justify the wicked. And thou shalt take no gift, for the gift blindeth the wise, and perverteth the words of the righteous. Also thou shalt not oppress a stranger, for you know the heart of a stranger, seeing you were strangers in the land of Egypt. In 6 years thou shalt sow thy land, and shalt gather in the fruits thereof. But the 7th year thou shalt let it rest and lie still, that the poor of thy people may eat. And what they leave the beasts of the field shall eat. In like manner thou shalt deal with thy vineyard, and with thy oliveyard. 6 days shalt thou do thy work, and on the 7th day thou shalt rest, that thine ox and thine ass may rest, and the son of thine handmaid, and the stranger may be refreshed. And in all things that I have said unto you, be circumspect, and make no mention of the name of other gods, neither let it be heard out of your mouth. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. I'm going to stop at the feast because I'm sure we won't go there, because we're probably not going to get further. We'll just stop at the feast there. And let's deal with these because I'm pretty sure we won't get through all that. So we were talking about the different, last time about the animals hurting each other, but we're still a little more, and this is, this has to do with property rights and property law. How do you deal with disputes over property? So if a man steals an ox or a sheep and kills it or sells it, now, he has to restore 5 oxen for an ox and 4 sheep for a sheep. And the bigger the crime, because an ox is a much larger animal, it's even higher penalty. It's a increase. Sheep are smaller, so 4. And the punishment should again fit the crime. The more you have done wrong, the greater your theft, the greater the penalty. If a thief be found breaking up, I wonder what the word, I was about to just guess at it. We don't have to do that. Found breaking up, it probably means breaking up, but that is, I'm assuming, it's funny because the word means literally a breaking in. I don't know. Maybe somehow in the old King James time, breaking up, like for us, breaking up is something couples do, or that's an idiomatic use of the word, of those words. It's creating a picture of breaking up. And I guess you could say, he breaks up your goods and breaks off a piece. It's the idea breaks, and we also think of in terms of breaking in is the way we usually describe that. And in the what the hell? There we go. According to the a breaking in or burglary is what it means. So that's quite simple. I don't have to worry about trying to explain what it means. Yeah, if he's found in the midst of his burglary, in the midst of his theft, what do we do? And, well, not what do you do, but if in the course of that he is smitten that he die, there's no bloodshed for him. Because a lot of times, you have some stranger in your house, it can be a threatening situation. Now, you got to be careful. Of course, like I said, this is the old law. It does not apply to us, and we can't not that the standards of righteousness are much higher, for one. But also, you got to abide by the law of where you live. Some states have a very strong castle doctrine, but meaning you're allowed to defend your home to quite a degree in some states. Not in my state. In my state, you have to be actually under a threat of violence before, and even then, you better be careful. As far as using violence to repel. I was told my mom. I was told my wife, and she's my mom too. So, as far as she's the mother in my life. Who is my mother? Who is my father? My sister, my brother. Behold, it's those that hear God's words. But I used to tell her, because I'd be working late nights with my brother and stuff, and I wouldn't get home till like 4 a.m. And I was like, if anyone ever breaks in, just grab the shotgun, just fire it into the roof. I should actually amend that. Fire it to one of the exterior walls, because it'd be a lot easier to repair. Because I think when someone hears gunshots in your house, if you have a genuine intruder, no one can prosecute you for shooting a wall, for one. And, and if you're upstairs and they're downstairs, it might give them a moment to retreat, which is what I would hope anyone breaking in and hearing gunshots would do. I just thought that was a decent strategy for her, because she was, I don't even know if she would know how to operate it actually, but I'm here now. But the other thing you gotta be careful of is it's not just the law. If someone were to use the castle doctrine as an excuse to just get away with murder, and I've seen people do that where they say oh, he was threatening, and it looks like they just wanted to kill somebody. Be careful when you're using violence to defend yourself. You can get yourself in hot water, but on the other hand, people do have a right to defend themselves against an attack. And when you attack someone with violence, if you become the victim of violence, no one should really have pity on you. As far as if you die in the course of doing evil, I've often said that's one of those things. It almost makes me think metaphorically of Christ, not of him, his death, like the sense that he shed his blood for us. And I've often said if God slew me while I was seeing a prostitute, I wouldn't have a very good, in my dying moments, I would have been like, uh-oh, maybe my judgment isn't what I thought. Maybe my faith is rejected. So God doesn't reject faith. It's like, well, I don't know. What's that one parable, one talent guy going to have to say? Lord, and there's a lot of people going to say, Lord, 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 Lord. All the wonderful works we did in your name. They believed something. They believed something. If the sun be risen upon him, meaning if he is, I assume that means there shall be blood shed for him, for he should make full restitution. If he have nothing, then he shall be sold for his theft. Okay, I'm not sure I'm going to go to a different translation because the first clauses are a little confusing to me. I assume the sun be risen upon him, meaning he lives. Okay? If the sun be risen upon him. And I thought, well, what does it mean? I had a thought like, well, does it mean like if it's during the daylight and someone kills someone who's breaking in the daytime, like they could have seen or known better? I don't know about that. That doesn't sound right. So let's see. Let's look at the good old NIV and maybe something else. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. I like the way they split the paragraph here. It's kind of interesting. In the middle of a verse. But remember, verses are human inventions. We added that. Of course, the whole scripture was inspired and written by man. Inspired by God through men. And so some people think the King James is an inspired translation. I think there's some inspiration in it, but it's definitely, I'd call it inspired, but not perfect. Because it isn't. There's certainly some issues with it. I love it, but again, I don't know that this is correct though, but I think it makes more sense. It's a lot like the girl who gets raped. If it's in the field, she has a presumption of innocence. She cried out, but no one could hear her. If she claims rape in town, she's supposed to cry out. That's part of what they're supposed to do. Now, these days we say women shouldn't be forced to do that. Well, I'll tell you what. I don't know if it's right or wrong, but I tell my daughter, you fight back like hell, and you cry out. If you just silently sit there and take it, it's going to be hard for me I'm going to be displeased with you. It's like you must fight. Because some people will retreat when fought off. Some men will, especially if your daughter knows how to fight, and mine does. Mine does. She knows how to put boys on their back. And, especially the ones that aren't, you got not the real strong, tough ones, that's for sure. But like I said, I always said about my children, they were not, none of my kids were state champions, but all my sons got to state, and none of them are going to get bowled over by some bum. Nothing wrong with being strong and formidable. You don't want to be pushed around necessarily. If you can, it's a benefit in life. But also on the top of that, that they should not be bullies or oppressors themselves. I don't give them that strength for them to abuse it, and they understand that. With power comes responsibility. With strength comes responsibility. With manhood comes responsibility. With womanhood comes responsibility. There's all kinds of responsibility, even in just living. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I never bring this over? Oh. This is the NIV version. If a thief is caught breaking in at night and is struck a fatal blow, the defender is not guilty of bloodshed. But if it happens after sunrise, the defender is guilty of bloodshed. It's interesting because it's phrased differently. I'm going to go see yet another translation. Let me see. Let's try the New American Standard. Okay. If the thief is caught while breaking and is struck so that he dies, there will no guilt for bloodshed be on his account, on account of his death. If the sun has risen on him, there will be guilt for bloodshed on his account. The thief okay. And they put a big hyphen here, it's a thing about thieving. Thieves shall make restitution. So the idea is that if there are lines, you don't just get carte blanche to kill thieves. It was given at night because in the night, this isn't the age of electricity. There's a lot of confusion and darkness. If someone breaks in at night and they get themselves killed, that's on them, is the way it says. And like I said, but if it's during the day, they're and again. It's a thief, not assuming he's unarmed. Because at night you wouldn't even know if he's armed or not. And so you might presumptively, a stranger in your house, coming at you in the darkness is in danger. That is that's something that's something that can wind up getting you killed, and the person who gets you, there's no guilt there. A thief coming at you in the darkness. I mean, I don't know whether you're armed or not. It's hard to make that assessment. Even in the daylight it is. But, these things are, and all the things are got to be brought to the judges. This is not for summary execution and stuff. It's the whole thing is they will bring them to the judges, and that's all about how they're going to judge things. So a thief shall make restitution. Thieves have to pay back what they stole. That's one of the principles. He must restore. And they restore, there's also a punishment. Not just a restoration, but also even more than what they actually took. Where we go? 1 second. All right. Okay, he should make full restitution. If you have nothing, then he should be sold for his theft. Again, they're selling him into slavery. Yeah, but that's under the rules of this. The payment, and honestly, prison is essentially slavery. And we do this all the time. We lock them up. We make them work for very little money, much below minimum wage. It's basically slave wage. This has been complained about in certain states. And the thing is, I don't object to imprisonment on that basis, that it's involuntary servitude. It's like if you're guilty, sometimes people are innocent, and I get it. But anyways, you've been caught up in the machinery of justice, which is a terrible thing. I think that's a horrible thing to happen to someone. But idealized, it's what people deserve. Yeah, you can't pay back. Well, we got other ways to make you pay. And they would still be subject to the same free after 7 years. I would presume that you do not sell an Israelite to strangers, again. If a man shall cause a field or vineyard to be eaten, or if theft be found in his hand alive, he shall restore double. Meaning, again, they said if he gives, prior it said if he had sold it and or used it in some way, he had, thus it was gone, he had to do fivefold. If he still got it, the penalty is a little less. So he's caught with the goods. The goods are already restored, well, double. You count yourself lucky you hadn't cashed in on it yet. If a man shall cause a field to be eaten, like he puts his beast in to eat, I got my neighbors, we'll just let him eat my neighbor's stuff. He's got to restore it with his own bests. He's got to make restitution or whatever the judges. Again, if you can't pay, you might be sold. If fire break out and catch and again, not sold to the south. I mean, the rules, as we discussed, if you didn't catch chapter 21, the last study, and I think it was the last study, and the previous one, I think a bit. It was actually more the previous one, right? I'm just about carving that out and making a special out of it, because like I said, I get sick of people talking about slavery in the Bible as if they know anything, and saying, oh yeah, well the Bible justifies slavery. It doesn't. It calls it evil. It says people who do those things are to be put to death, people who enslave people. But there's a legal basis on which people may be sold into service, and also which they get out of it, eventually, after they've paid their debt to society. We still do this to people. And in fact, these prisons are often run by private companies. We're selling them to private companies to be, and then we pay for them to stay there, though, often. I mean, obviously, we do a lot of things backwards. Like it says in, I think it's Ezekiel, you're unique among whores, Israel. Other whores usually get paid, but you pay your lovers, and that's kind of the thing. We pay for prisoners to be prisoned. But often, I mean, it's not like it's easy on them either, not at all. And so I don't want to say, it should be harsher. I said, being imprisoned is bad, and our prison system is pretty bad because it enhances criminality. In fact, you'd be better off being sold to a wealthy landowner who was under the rules of the Old Testament law. You would be better off. Because I tell you what, if they knock your teeth out in jail, you ain't going free. But under God's law, you would. Okay, we already went there. We gotta scroll down. Okay, so you got to make restitution. If fire break out and catch in thorns, so that stacks of corn or the standing corn of the field be consumed therewith, he that kindled the fire shall surely make restitution. This is what I'm saying. You're responsible. It's like, well, I can't go. Well, the fire got out of control. Well, you need to plan ahead. You don't just set fires willy-nilly. You got to understand fire is dangerous. It can destroy property and lives. It's something that the law addresses, the use of fire. And when it gets out of control, yes, you must restore that. So it's not my fault. No, it is, according to the law. And in our country, the same thing, too. They found out who started this fire. Who started it? And even if it's an accident, you can be held responsible by not responsibly using fire. Well, I didn't know it would get out of control. I was just burning some weeds. And it's like, yeah, you didn't look around and consider the situation. It's funny because I keep thinking of that. I drove down the road and I saw along the side of the road a guy burning the side of the road, which is fine, but he didn't clear around the electrical poles. And many of them were scorched and there was equipment there. I'm like, I hope you don't get in trouble. I mean, you could get in trouble with the power company or with the government, local government, for setting fires and damaging public property. You got to do it responsibly. You got to think about these things. And sometimes it's okay to use fire. I mean, it's so okay to use fire that you can buy a flame-throwing dog, which I totally want at least 10 of those for my flame-throwing dog army. I've never seen that. You can get it's like a couple, $10,000 or something like that. Flame-throwing dog. Robot dog, I should say. Flame-throwing robot dog. I assume you would have understood that it wasn't a real dog. Anyways. You can see by my expression how much I love fire and violence, I confess. But, for the Lord's sake, we do not use those things, not to harm people, right? If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges. I'm sorry. If a man shall deliver to his neighbor money or stuff to keep, would you please keep that? And it be stolen out of the man's house. If the thief be found, let him pay double. If the thief be not found, then the master of the house shall be brought unto the judges to see whether he have put his hand in to do unto his neighbor's goods. There must be an investigation. Some things have to be investigated. A lot of these questions, when it's not cut and dry, you could apply this principle. Like I said, for every case, it doesn't say this. But when you have this already in place, you can take that principle and apply it to other aspects of the law. Okay, sometimes when things aren't clear, we have to investigate. Sometimes it's hard to figure out. We got to see whether the guy was who he entrusted with the goods ended up actually stealing them himself. And as often people are greedy and covetous. A man wants to go on a journey and doesn't want to take all his valuables with him because it's dangerous perhaps, so he leaves it with a trusted neighbor. For all manner of trespass, whether it be for ox, for ass, for sheep, for raiment, for any manner of lost thing, which another challengeth to be his, the cause of both parties shall come before the judges, and whom the judges shall condemn, he shall pay double unto his neighbor. The judges are going to be the final authority on that. But there has to be some sort of, where we bring the evidence together to see if they can determine who's right, who's wrong. If a man deliver unto his neighbor an ass or an ox or a sheep or any beast to keep it, and it die, or be hurt or driven away, no man seeing it, and no man saw what happened. It's just dead. Nobody knows how, or it's just gone, driven away, but no one, or hurt or injured, but no one knows the actual cause. Then shall an oath of the Lord, this is the first instance we've seen of this. This comes up later too. We're going to talk about between them both. There were these things in Deuteronomy, the blessings and the cursings. The curses, like for example, one of my favorite ones was cursed be any man that smiteth his neighbor secretly. Because obviously when someone secretly harms someone else and they do it successfully, who can tell? It's hard for man to bring about the punishment, but God knows. And that's why those curses and these oaths are brought into play. They make an oath saying, okay, I'm not guilty of this before the Lord. They both come before the Lord and make this oath. I haven't put my hand to your goods. And they have to accept that God will bring about the justice. The owner shall accept it. He shall not make it good. He's not going to replace it. If this happens, it's going to be before the Lord. I swear I did not take your animal. I don't know what happened to it. I don't know why it's dead. I don't know why it's gone. I can't say it was stolen. It might have run off or it's hurt, whatever. But I don't know why. Now, maybe he does. Maybe he's lying. Maybe he killed it, or maybe there was an accident, or maybe he secretly sold it. All right? And so then there's an oath to the Lord, and then God will judge. The Lord judge between you and me. Between me and thee, funny says. Okay, and it shall, if it be stolen from him, he shall make restitution unto the owner thereof. It's interesting. So, if it's, again, it said driven away, that could mean by animals, or no one knows what happened. Stolen, I think it means, well, we do know what happened. And I guess what it is saying is like, well, you got to protect your neighbor's goods when you're watching over it. You're responsible for it. And if something happens to it and it's known, I suppose then you are responsible. Not double, because it wasn't your fault, right? If it be torn in pieces, let him bring it for witness, and he shall not make good that which was torn. Well, I would say it depends. Yes, but like, what if? Well, and say what you let the animal out of you let it out of your care and it got destroyed, and I don't know. Well, like I said, there's got to be some sort of culpability. In certain circumstances, there's lack of culpability, and in other circumstances, culpability, mea culpa, I'm responsible. They got to take responsibility. If a man borrow aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die, the owner thereof being not with it, he shall surely make it good. If I wonder about I want to see why that owner being not with it. I guess the idea is if the owner is there, it's still his responsibility. But then if the owner is there, then, why do you have his thing? You're borrowing it. Okay, if a man borrows an animal, they say an animal. Let me see here. Is it obvious? Aught of his neighbor, and it be hurt or die. If its owner is with it, I think maybe like sometimes you say, hey, could you bring me that animal? And I was bringing you the animal and it got hurt. It's your fault. You asked me to bring it. No, if it's still in your possession, I think. If it's not in the possession of the owner, as long as it's in their possession, even if you're borrowing it, you're not responsible till you actually take possession of the thing. If it is hired, it came by its hire. I'm not sure what he means by that, so I can't really comment on it. If it's hired, it came by its hire. Can't, and I'm not sure what to make of that. Except it seems to be saying that you're not responsible. When you hire something, you pay. It came because you paid for it to come. I'm not sure what to make of that, because when I rent something, I presume a lot of times you have to make a deposit that's greater than that's greater than the rental price itself, so that if anything happens to it, if it's damaged, they'll take at least that much. If you do not agree to pay for the whole thing, they'll at least have the deposit. I ain't paying for that. That thing's junk. Well, they have their deposit. So I'm not sure what that's saying precisely, and so we're just going to leave that lie. We can use wisdom to understand. Like I said, you're often held responsible for things to a greater degree, and we have our own laws that govern these things, but it shows the principles of responsibility and restitution. We should make up for the things we do wrong. Especially when we hurt others or we damage others' property. A lot of our sins are purely against the Lord or against even ourselves. Throughout my life, most of my sins were of that sort. Where it's like things that most other people don't even care, except maybe my family, And then I suppose in that respect that, but then like when you sin against your family, let's say you have a major drug problem or something like that, right? What do? Well, you got to make restitution. You got to give them back the father or the mother they deserve. And stop doing that. Okay. If a man entice a maid that is not betrothed, that's an important part, because if she is betrothed, there's a different thing, because she's been promised to someone else. That promises are sacred to the Lord. Oaths are sacred to the Lord. Now, Jesus counseled us to not make oaths, but rather just always speak the truth. I don't think that just like judge not doesn't mean never judge. It just means careful about how you judge. That's what it means. Judge not that you be not judged, for with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged. I submit to that. I realize that the way I judge others, God's going to judge me. And I know that I have the imputed righteousness of Christ, but I still do not presumptively act under that. I want to, I don't want to think, it's not a get out of jail free card. It's not even though God looks at me and doesn't regard my sins anymore, I ought not abuse that. Do not tempt him. Do not play games with your salvation like that. I'm going to sin as often as I want. Well, no. You should not want to sin. But if people are, human nature is that they may sin. And Jesus said, if your brother turn to you and repent, you'll forgive him 490 times a day. 7 times 70 is a symbolic number, which pretty much means that's more than anyone's going to sin in a day. You won't even have enough time to say, I repent that many times in a day. That's the point. We are to be forgiving. Again, presuming the sincerity of the apology. Obviously, if someone sins against me, forgive me. I'm going to slap you again. No. This is not for abuse. This is for a brother who's truly struggling. All right. Okay, if a father utterly refused to give it to him, he shall pay money, according to the dowry of virgins. As a father, I'm a little bit perturbed by that, because I'm like, well, she submitted. He enticed her. It's not rape. All right, it's not rape. I don't like it much either. But yeah, he ought to pay him for taking that, which was not his to take. It's another kind of theft. And again, notice he has to marry her. That's what's, the idea is if a man lie with a maid that is not betrothed, he shall surely endow her to be his wife. He's got to be engaged. I guess that's what, endow, that's where dowry comes from. An endowment at the time of marriage, right? And dowry, I know there's some other English connection with that. I don't know what it says here. He must pay. I guess the New American Standard, you got to be careful. Not careful, but I was just looking at it. It's very similar. The language is often close to the King James. If you want to get an interpretation, then you want the NIV. And there's nothing wrong with scholarly interpretations. Now, sometimes, like I said, I don't think it's an appropriate base text to study the Bible from. You should never just study the Bible and use the NIV as your base text, because it is an interpretation. You want to use a translation, something more like the New American Standard if you can't handle the King James, or something like that. But the NIV is highly interpretive. But these are interpretations by very qualified scholars, more qualified than I. So I definitely oftentimes will look at it and definitely give it some weight. If a man seduces a virgin who is not pledged to be married and sleeps with her, he must pay the bride price. I thought it meant he had to marry her, but I guess maybe I'm wrong. Well, because that's the thing. Well, I think he's got to. I thought it said other. There's another place where it says he may not put her away either. Oh no, that was in the case of rape. Actually, if they would suffer him to marry her. Let me see here. A man sees a virgin who's not betrothed and sleeps with her, he must pay a dowry for her to be his wife. Okay, yes, it does say he must marry her. If her father refuses, which he could do, he must pay money equal to the dowry for virgins. He used to have to do that because they valued purity from women. And, I do value it of men. I don't know how you're going to become a non-virgin unless you ruin someone else or go see a whore, which is not either paid or unpaid. The world is crawling with all kinds of unpaid whores these days, right? Girls that'll just throw it away without a thought or a care. They're not instructed. Like I said, it's good for you. It's good to keep your daughters a virgin and your sons and daughters. I encouraged all of my children, not just encourage. I don't encourage. I demand. I explain to them all when they reach about 12 as they go into puberty. I talk about sex. I can wait that long, except on one or two I had to do it a little early because they were curious. So 10-year-olds ask. I put it a little more in 10-year-old terms. When they get to a certain age, I sit them down and have the sex talk. You gotta be a man. Talk to your children about sex. Don't let someone else pump their head full of garbage. My kids didn't go to elementary school. If they did, I would have had to talk to them about sex when they were 5, which is absurd. But I remember in first grade, all the kids were like, hey, you know what this means? You know what this means? You know what? I mean, seriously. And I was like, I was utterly ignorant. All I knew from my parents, all they gave me as instruction is like, stay away from women. They're evil. That's not good, Dad. I love you, but as a father and my father, accepting the critiques of the errors they made, and it's like, oh well, I'm doing better because I learned from their mistakes. That's why I do not resent my parents at all for the way they raised me. Other than, I do not appreciate some of the things that my birth mother did as far as exposing me to pornography and provoking me to wrath. I mean, she basically took and has all my life taken this honor your mother thing towards me as a license for her to do whatever she pleased. You know what I mean? And which is not the intent. I'm sorry. And I'm not a child anymore. I'm a man in my own right. I'm a lord of a house, of a household, of children and grandchildren and more. My nephews and nieces look to me for advice and for wisdom. And I'm not going to truck with such nonsense. Who is my mother indeed? That's what I'm saying. It's like you can void. There is, I think this is, I don't need to go to the law for this. This is New Testament as far as I'm concerned. You can void yourself of those rights, your parental rights before your children, especially once they become adults. You stray too far from that. I counsel them to try to reconcile and forgive, but some people there's nothing to be done but to let them go to Satan, that perhaps they may learn not to blaspheme, and they may learn not to sin and learn to be fearful rather than foolish. All right. The virgins. Okay, that's good. Yeah, like I said, if I went to send them to school, they'd have to be taught at a young age. What's that? It's like sometimes you gotta make sacrifices for your kids. If you want to, I want my kids to be this and that. Well, that's a tough road. My life has not been easy because of my financial situation. I've always lived month to month and often falling behind. Anyways, you shall not suffer a sorceress to live, or witch. I'm sorry. They call it a sorceress in the not the King James, the NIV. No, I don't think that's very informative, really. But let's look at. Well, I don't even need to know the meaning of the word to talk about this. For one, a lot of these death sentences. One, it's not for us to carry out death sentences. I'm not the judge. God is the judge. Another thing is in Christ. When the I take it a lot like the woman taken in adultery. That's a very serious offense. Adultery. It's not on the level of murder. No, but it was a capital offense. So it's up there. It was up there. But Jesus said, neither do I condemn thee. Go and sin no more. If he was forgiving on that account, we also ought to forgive witches and adulterers and homosexuals. That we should forgive them and say, go and sin no more. Obviously, like I said, we don't govern, as Christians, we don't govern people outside of our faith. I don't have any authority over anybody outside of the church. And that authority is only under Christ. Like, I don't have personal authority over any of you or any other people, but I have authority to speak on God's behalf, the truth, and also under his instruction. So we don't have any right to put anyone to death as Christians, as the church. That is not our prerogative. We can excommunicate them from the church and, thrust them from our fellowship. And that's the worst thing you could do to them. And it's enough. It is sort of saying, go and sin no more, if you can figure that out. It's not necessarily it may seem kind and touching, but also it is still a punishment. There's that sort of like, go. There's a lot of times when it says, where that phrase doesn't have a good connotation. There's a blessing sometimes in going, right? The apostles are sent. But it's meant, you have to turn your life around. But anyways, witches, what does this mean? Where am I? Laws of social responsibility. All one word, right? I think honestly, when I look at this in this Bible Hub, they must occasionally just do this wrong. I understand that this is the sentence has only 2 words, and I just realized, thou shalt not suffer to live is one word. A witch is a different word. See how they have this highlighted? But that's just their mistake. It's not like one who practices sorcery to live. No, the word to live has a negative. It's usually lo or something like that in Hebrew, as I recall, like lo ruhama, not pitied. Or lo ami, not my people. Right, so it's, she should not live, a witch. Kashaf, what is a kashaf? To practice sorcery. Whatever. Primitive root, properly to whisper a spell, to enchant or practice magic. It's practicers of occult arts of all sorts. Now, a lot of times, like I said, all the whole don't suffer them to live is not up to you, so don't worry about it. And as Christians, we shouldn't be. But the practice of seeking supernatural power through incantations and spells and the powers like that, it is considered evil. That's sort of, the only power we should be looking for is the power of God. Also, I think they had more specific ideas of what a sorceress was, and my thought is that we have this image of like the girls with the little earrings and bracelets and they do their little Wiccan thing and all that. It's still wrong, and a lot of it, like I said, a lot of anti-Christianity is just because people don't want to do righteousness. They want to have their own standards. Do what thou wilt. But harm none. It's like, that's not quite, the Lord doesn't see it that way. What you do in your private life does affect others, because it affects what you could be to others. If I am consumed with the world of witchcraft, I'm not preaching the gospel, which is the highest thing I could be called to. So again, it is something that it takes the place of the law of God. It takes the place of the power of God, of trust in God. I don't trust in God. I got to go to these spells here to fix my problems. And, as the Lord is very adamant against other gods. And again, this is the law of the Israelites, but the principle still stands. God will not, that is not a valid way to reconcile yourself with God or to obtain power in the world. To seek it through the means of witchcraft and sorcery, or voodoo, or any of those things, especially voodoo. If I was going, if you were going to look for places where humans are being sacrificed, look no farther than places like Haiti or the Congo, where they have witch doctors. Was it Congo? I'm sorry if it's not the Congo. Witch doctors of, maybe that wasn't the country. But in a lot of those countries, they have witch doctors and people seek power, and they think, well, in the world, they'll think, oh, I can sacrifice a child, and then a demon will help me, and maybe they do, but you shouldn't do it, because you will. And the end thereof is destruction. Let's go back to the text. Whoever lieth with a beast shall surely be put to death. I almost feel like I didn't read that one. I must have missed that verse because I don't remember reading that. I must have read it. Well, it's a short verse. Yeah, do not lie with beasts. That is a death penalty also. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about that. Understand, people are tempted. People are, whatever. It's not the right way. He that sacrificeth unto any god, save unto the Lord only, he shall be utterly destroyed. No sacrificing to other gods in this land, and among God's people. Now that is not a necessarily like a command to go out and do so to all the people in the world, because mostly what they're supposed to be is a special people, a peculiar people, an example to others. Like Jesus talked about us being a city that is set on a hill cannot be hid. Don't put your light under a bushel basket. A candle is meant to be put on a candlestick so it will give light. Just as salt must be salty. Otherwise, what's the point of it? The point of salt is the savor. Sorry. Again, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him. The people who are, you're not from around here is an inappropriate attitude. Now, you were strangers once in the land of Egypt. We also all, in some ways, are strangers and pilgrims in the earth. I've certainly always acutely felt that because I never, I didn't fit in well in school. I never had many friends. I'd have a couple friends, but never many. Never like a large group of friends. Hey, it's Paul. Hey. I mean, I guess I had a medium group of friends, but I was mostly hitchhiking on my best friend's friends, really. It was like I had one friend, and then he had a lot of friends, and he brought me into the circle because I would never make that many friends on my own. But it is good to be friendly. And it's something I didn't understand as a young person, how to be friendly. I walk around scowling all the time, and both, I didn't seem like someone who would be open to being friends, maybe. Even if someone thought, I kind of like that guy, I like to be friends, but he seems so standoffish. I'd even hear about this years later. Anyways. But so I understand what it's like to not fit in and to feel yourself not a part of it. So I always acutely feel this. And I feel the same way. We have foreigners coming into our country. They should come here legally, please. We have laws about entry. I don't resent the ones who come here looking for a better life. Of course not. And I definitely don't think we should oppress them. But there has to be, the law will be, the thing is, as I said, I get in trouble for breaking the laws of this country, and they should get in trouble for breaking the law. You shouldn't have two laws, one for the stranger and one for the native, okay? And here's the thing. When the law doesn't, we're kind of, in our country, we're getting to this point where it's like, we're not applying the law. The law is applied very strictly to people who protested on January 6th, but not at all to people who want to just storm across the southern border. I said, and then there are people who come across the border with ill intent, criminals. Those should definitely be all deported. All the criminals and people who do crimes in our country should be removed from our country. Not native criminals, but, whatever. I mean, people who come across illegally and then they start committing crimes, they need to be taken out. They need to be shipped out back to their country. A lot of times that's not possible. That's why we need to control the entry before they get here. I do think people who want to work, and especially those with skills, we should open the doors for them, especially in areas where we need it. I mean, I don't have a problem with that. A lot of people are worried about like white people being erased. I do not worry about that. I have 8 children. I don't think white people are going anywhere. I'm really not worried about it. And I think we have a lot of friends who are black and a lot of friends who are brown or like me, olive. I mean, really. Because I'll tell you what, as someone who, though I'm only a quarter Italian, who looks a bit of, I look like a guinea, right? For someone who carries it, I've been told, I've had people who hate Jews call me a Jew. I've had people who hate blacks say, you got black blood in you. And I said, so what? I really don't care. And so I do not, I look for Christian brothers and sisters, and that's who I love. And I don't care what race you are or where you came from or how long you've been here. I have ancestors in this country that go back 20 generations. I think 20, I forgot, I didn't count them, but it was like boom, 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 way back to people from, the Dutch and stuff. I didn't know I had Dutch. And my mother was an immigrant. So, I mean, I have people who came from other places in every stage of my family history and they were strangers here and they were received. And now here I am, a native born American. I feel great affinity with the people who have been here even longer, with the Indians. I love listening to some of these Indians talk and see how much they love our country, especially because of our American values and the things that were set forth. All men are created equal, endowed by their creator. We haven't always lived by that, but that's the right idea. Just because the country hasn't always upheld those ideals, that doesn't mean those ideals aren't good and that we shouldn't keep trying. The men should be judged by the content of their character, not by the color of their skin or by where they came from. Strangers were to have respect in Israel. You shall not afflict any widow or fatherless child. The prophets get really ticked off about that. Most of this stuff they do. They oppress the stranger. They oppress the widows. They oppress the fatherless. And it's not like we're better now. Even though the way we treat strangers by letting them think everyone can just come. And then they flood in, and what do they find? Are there all these jobs for them? No, I see men standing idle in the street. They don't have no work for them. What work? What work for people that have never been to school, that don't speak English? You bring them here, you make them dependent on the state. And that's not going to work. Pretty soon they're going to be in the streets starving because our country's falling apart. And what's then going to be? The natives are going to start oppressing them because they're not going to be happy about them being here. And it's not right. We should have, strong, like they say, strong fences make good neighbors. Strong fences make good neighbors, and that's true. Shouldn't move your marker, shouldn't invade your neighbor's territory. Oh, it was done in the past. I understand. A lot of it was done, though not unwillingly. A lot, like I said, for a lot of Indians were, thank God you're here. Our neighbors are killing us. Join with us and fight against them. Like, okay, and we'll be strong together. And it's, but people turn on each other. That's the problem. Is like once you go down the path of war and violence and oppression, it becomes this never-ending cycle of revenge and hate against whole groups of people, and it's just the most terrible thing. People shouldn't be judged in groups and stuff like that. Each person should be brought individually before the judge to judge their cause. Ultimately, we see that in the great white throne, where God, each man answers for his deeds. Thank God I'm going to avoid that particular moment because I'll have already passed from death into life. During the first resurrection, I'll come before the judgment seat of Christ. He'll judge me according to my faith, which I have every confidence I'm going to be just fine because I'm in good conscience. I have followed the Lord all my life. I have sought him. I have sought his wisdom and his instruction. What do I need to do, Lord? What do I need to say? I'm not casually taking up the cross, nor do I casually say when I say I serve the white throne. And to me, that somehow, I guess that particular formulation means a lot to me. So if thou afflict them in any wise, and they cry at all to me, I will surely hear their cry. And a lot of times, because God does not execute vengeance immediately, they do even worse things. They murder, they steal. They continue to do their oppression, thinking they're getting away with it, when all they're doing is just heaping the judgment up and the wrath, storing it up against the day of wrath to be revealed. My wrath, and also it does become a national issue because we all have a responsibility to hold up the law and to hold up good, just like in this country. And even if I'm opposed to it, I'm opposed to a lot of the evil that our country is carrying out all over the world in our name, in the name of American interests. What they mean is that in the interest of very rich people in America who want to steal resources from other countries at a bargain, much like the way the French have been, buying uranium from Niger for years and enriching the corrupt leadership that they have installed, while the people in that nation suffer, and their resources are just being gobbled up. They have this wonderful, valuable uranium, but they don't benefit from it. Only the fat cats benefit from it. And we help hold up a lot of fat cats around the world. There are puppets. Like when we didn't like the leader in Pakistan, we get a coup. If we don't like the leader in Egypt, a coup. Watch, there'll be a coup pretty soon because the leader of Egypt is not doing what he's told. Or maybe they're allowing him to do it because, for once, I'm sort of behind our president because even though I think it's all just talk. I don't think he's doing anything serious. He could put a stop to the murder that's going on in Gaza. He could do that. To the starvation, if he really cared. All he cares about is his election. Just like when he gives money to Ukraine, keep fighting. I don't want anyone to know that we've been beaten until after the election. I think it's too late for that. And most of that money ain't going there. And most of the money that goes there goes out the window to the fat cats. Like they recently discovered a lot of money they paid for defending a particular city just went into shell corporations and no defenses. The Russians just marched right in. Well, good for them. Good for them. I'm rooting for them. We need a humiliation. I don't mind being like a little like Jeremiah. Did he betray his nation? When he said, the king of Babylon's going to come. He's going to punish you. And said, I don't want it. I'm opposed to it. But for all the blowback, there were a lot of people in the World Trade Center that didn't have nothing to do with the reasons, with all the things that have been going on in the Middle East that we perpetrated, beginning with the whole overthrow of the duly elected government of Iran. We don't support democracy. We support autocracy everywhere where we have an autocrat who will do what we tell them. Okay? And so those lies, I'm sick of those lies. We were supposed to go around the world spreading democracy and American values. We did neither. When in Afghanistan, when they had elections, some of our intelligence agents would be like, hey, they're stuffing the ballot box. We're going to pretend you didn't say that, is what they told him. My eyes are open. And it's like, that doesn't truck with me. I believed in our values. I believed, they thought that we'll tell the people a bunch of BS about what we're really up to. We see you. We see you. I know you see me. I know you see me. Fear. Because the Lord is near. The judgment of God is near. And he will not be turned back. Nor will he have pity. My wrath will wax hot. I will kill you with a sword. I bear a sword, and I do not bear it in vain. I have a powerful sword, and I fear no man. And men will learn to fear me. Shouldn't have said that. Your wives shall be widows, and your children fatherless. That's why, you know what? Them that hate me, it gets visited on the third and fourth generation. Yeah, and you get fatherless children, and those fatherless children grow up to be bad boys who have more fatherless children, who grow up to have more fatherless children until they learn to sin not and obey the Lord. Yeah, every once in a while you see one of those fatherless children turn it around. They find Jesus. It's almost always the thing. Or maybe they find some other religion. I'm not saying they don't sometimes have benefits. Discipline does a lot for a lot of people. Though the power of Jesus is much better than discipline of other religions, as far as I'm concerned. Though, Christian discipline, if practiced, a lot of times it's not practiced. It's not even taught that a Christian should be disciplined. Even though it's right in their disciple. But discipline in your actions, discipline in your behavior should be instructed by the Word of God, and especially by the doctrine of Christ. Okay, if you lend money to any of my people that is poor, thou shalt not be to him as a usurer. You're not going to act like you're a banker or something. Neither shall you lay upon him usury. You're not going to ask him to pay extra interest. No, it's to the poor. If there's a rich man who wants to borrow money, I guess you could. But they don't often need to borrow money. It's always the poor who needs money. So, again, I'm trying to figure whether I should use an example. Well, let's say, especially if you have a family member or a Christian brother who needs some money, don't start acting like a loan shark on them, okay? And honestly, and if they can't pay, you forgive them. You forgive them. And I've done that, okay? I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm just saying I'm not being a hypocrite. Sometimes you just forgive debts and you forget about it. And you let them go free. There's nothing more beautiful than seeing someone freed from an obligation. I love that. Seeing someone, you mean I can just forget about it? Yes, please forget about it. I don't want you to ever want to think about this again. That's what you do. If you lend money to the poor, no, you're not going to lay interest on them. If thou all take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge. Now, some people say that's excessive interest. I definitely agree. I mean, like the interest that the poor have to pay in our country, like, 29% for a credit card, and those payday loans, it's like crazy in the hundreds of percent interest. APR, if you were looking on a yearly basis, like what you'd be paying if that was over a course of a year. Yeah, you're paying like 150% interest sometimes on those things. I don't know the exact numbers, but a lot. Maybe it's not 150. I've never been to payday loans, so I don't know what that looks like. Because you know what? I don't get payday. I have no certain income, and I've lived that way for a long time. Long time. Just you and me, Lord. No, it's not quite. I have beloved helpers. Like I said, but whenever I get more money, it seems like I need more money. And that's fine. I need more money. Inflation's gone up. I got more money. I got just enough. Maybe just not quite enough, but maybe there'll be more. I don't know. I don't worry about it. I learned to trust the Lord. There's so many reasons to be fearful. There's so many reasons and causes to have, I don't know if this is going to work out. Oh, it's like, it'll be all right. And I'm not, this is how I tell myself, man, because I go through it. And I'm glad I do, because like I said, it makes me sympathetic with others. And also I can tell you with confidence, it's like you should trust the Lord because he brought me through all my troubles. If thou take thy neighbor's raiment to pledge, meaning like, I'll promise to pay you back. Here's my clothes. Okay. But you got to return it to him by that the sun goes down. That is his cover. You can't take the shirt off. I think this might also be I'm going to turn it into a principle. Don't take the shirt off someone's back. Like the last thing someone has. There's got to have mercy somewhere. It's like, here, you got to have a blanket to sleep in. You got to have shelter to cover yourself from the cold. Because if you do that, and when someone there is suffering, the Lord will listen and hear their sufferings, hear their cries. The cry of the innocent always goes up before the Lord, and the cry of the poor is ever before him, and all their suffering, he knows. So why doesn't he do something about it? That's not the point. Poverty is something that's given to us to experience. Also riches. I'd rather give me neither riches nor poverty, right? But I've been tempted. I fantasized about stealing, not from people per se, like from banks. I got insurance, right? I've had fantasies about they don't go far because I can't imagine how I'd get away with it, robbing a bank. I don't know anything about robbing banks, but they make me so angry sometimes that like that thought will come into your mind. Don't rob a bank. I always imagine going in at night, like burgling a bank with like a safe cracker type thing. That would definitely not go well for me. Okay. Don't But like, poverty does tempt you to think like that, or to go play the lottery and gamble. I don't think the Bible really talks much about gambling, but I always figure if the Lord wants me to be rich, he'll give me a great idea to do it. That'll make something that'll make me rich or whatever. I don't know. I don't need to go out trying to gamble on it. There's enough dice rolling in my life. All right. I am gracious. The Lord hears our troubles, hears our cries, even the little things. He knows when we're cold. He sees our suffering. He takes notes. Remember, from his perspective, though, we are all worthy of death, for all have sinned, and we're all gonna die because of the first sin, and the subsequent ones only confirm that. No matter how good a person I am, I'm still not worthy of everlasting life. And the sufferings of this life are just not to be compared with the glory that shall be revealed. If you're suffering, turn to God in your suffering, trust in him, and realize, I'm not about pie in the sky, because I don't believe there's pie in the sky, for one. As far as I don't think heaven is about stuffing yourself with pastries. It's not, any more than it's about 40 virgins. You're to be continent here, because that's what the kingdom is like. It's a place of restraint, of restrained power. God doesn't do just whatever. He can do a lot. I mean, look at the universe. My goodness. But you see the possibilities of good and evil. And we have to, if we want to live in a truly a kingdom in which only righteousness dwells, which is all good. The Lord is endeavored on this project to bring ye then being evil to a place where we can have fellowship with a holy God. And this is what he has required of us, to live this life, to suffer it, to die, but to do so in faith to him, that he would raise us up in the end, which he will do, which I trust, because he is risen. I know, because when I call on his name, I received his power. So he's there. He's coming. He's coming. I think more. I don't know if the Lord is coming in my lifetime, but I do believe the apocalypse is upon us. It's going to be coming. Maybe not this year, maybe not the next, maybe not 10 years, maybe not even in the next 20. But I believe before I die, if I should live to my normal years that I might expect, if I do, which is no guarantee. But if I won't, then my grandchildren or my children will see it. Maybe not. It may not be the coming of the Lord, but the end of this age, because of the wickedness that's just coming out. There's just the wickedness. The earth is going to be filled with violence. It already is to a great degree. It's going to get even worse, and it's going to come to an end. All of it, and all the works of man. The earth is going to reel to and fro like a drunkard. The sun and the moon will be darkened. Fearful signs in the heavens. The sea and the waves roaring. Men's hearts failing them for fear. Oh, I believe the judgment is coming. If not the final judgment, it'll be the judgment of this age. This age is ripe for being judged, and the time is near. I believe that. It's not a revelation from God. It's because of the signs in the stars. Not the alignment of constellations. I mean, because they're exploding. Whatever. I may be being a little cryptic. We'll talk about that more some other time. Thou shalt not revile the gods, nor curse the ruler of thy people. And we could interpret that as like in Psalm 82, I have said ye are gods, all of you are children of the Most High, referring to the men whom God has set over the people in the stead of God. Just like Moses said, you will be to Pharaoh a god. You will be God to Pharaoh, and I will make your brother Aaron your prophet. From their perspective, Moses is standing there as the messenger of God. A messenger of God is God's mouthpiece. That's what a prophet is. And so you do not revile those who stand in God's place. Or, I take this also principle. For me, I think it's right. I don't think it's good to mock or revile other people's religion. Knowing the fear of God, we persuade men. I seek to persuade them. Like when Paul went to Mars Hill, he didn't go there and speak evil of the gods. He came to declare to them the unknown God. Now we know that the gods of the heathen are nothing, or even devils, if you will. But again, it's not a question of what you think about them. It's like how you go about expressing that. Let's see what revile actually is here before I start getting too eloquent about what we should not do. Revile down here. Revile the gods. To be slight, swift, or trifling. Again, slight, swift, or trifling. Swift has this idea of like when you give a quick answer, sometimes it's not your best answer. A lot of times the quickest retort is something rude, right? Trifling. Interesting. The water was abated is one of the ways that has been translated. I mean, it became less of an issue, I suppose. Her mistress was despised in her sight. Trifling also makes me think of the idea of making light of someone. Yeah, in fact, there you go. To be or to make light, literally swift, small, sharp, or figuratively easy, trifling, or vile. Mean to make light of something, less of something. Yeah, I mean, it's not wise to insult the Muslims' God. And I see people do that. I'm like, I understand, like, I remember back in the day, I remember feeling tempted to, like, when people were drawing cartoons of Muhammad and stuff, saying rude things. I never got involved in that. And I generally, when people say you're not allowed to do something, I feel obliged to do something. But like, I don't look at them as my enemies, because the greater enemy are the ungodly. I look at them as being as Muslims who are faithful to their religion, much as I would a Samaritan who was faithful to their corrupt version of Judaism. The Samaritans did not follow Judaism the way the Jews did, and the Jews despised them for their pretensions. But Jesus did not. And that's very important. He did not despise them, though he wanted to bring them the truth. I think the Samaritans to this day are all Christians, right? They're the most, and in some ways that, like they were following the Jews' religion. I think they must, I don't know if any of them are not. That would be very fascinating if any of them still follow the old ways. I don't think so. I think that was a full conversion. I don't know. Maybe a Samaritan could tell me, because they are still around. Or they were. I remember when they were in seeing things. Oh, the Samaritans, the historic people, they hung around because they were, I think, too minor to be much of a concern. I guess I don't know. But anyways, a lot of them probably may have forgotten their ethnicity and just became Christians of that part of the world. I don't think it's a good idea to insult other gods or to, make light of rulers. I do a bit of that, don't I? I don't make light of them so much, though. I'm critiquing them. It's not the same as saying something's wrong or condemning someone for doing something evil. That's not making lighter. Making light is like, oh, it's no big deal. I think our leaders are quite important, and I give them a lot of weight. That's why they make me quite angry. Because, like I said, of all the great evil they're doing. I don't think that it's the same. Like I said, when Jeremiah starts criticizing the king and saying things against the king, they're like, how dare you? It's like, the problem is, again, you always have to use, like it says in the end of the chapter, be circumspect. When you think about these things, don't just take them as dogmatic, wooden, letter of the law type things. You got to understand the spirit of the thing. And you take the spirit of the whole thing and bring it together. Now you're getting a picture of what God's mind is like. Again, as long as you also understand that they are written, God is responding to man's sin, because that's what the law is, God's response to our sins and our sinful ways. And so God approves of people fornicating first and then getting married and paying. It's like, you think he approves of that fornication? Of the man forcing the maid or lying with the maid, enticing her? He doesn't approve of it, but, he has laws that deal with it, so he approves. It's such a boneheaded way of thinking. These people know not the word nor how to read it. We're out of time, but we're going to get to that in this chapter. So don't revile the gods or curse the ruler of the people. He's your ruler. I do pray for our rulers that they would wise up and do the right thing. That's why you shouldn't curse them, because he's your ruler. We need him to do good. But it is infuriating when they do bad. And again, I don't have to follow this. This law for me doesn't necessarily apply. They've cursed themselves. And that's another thing is like, you don't curse because God does the cursing. Also, it's not a good idea. You start cursing the leader, you can get in trouble. You start prophesying against them, you can get in trouble. So don't be presumptuous. But yeah, the idea is respect authority. We should respect authority. I do. Be law-abiding in the land where you live. Follow the rules. As much as unless it's asking you to do something unrighteous. You don't curse the ruler of the people, but when he's a curse to the people, there's nothing. We must speak up and say, what are you doing? You're leading us down a path of destruction. That's evil. You know, like I said, they are there to uphold good. They bear the sword to be the upholders of justice in society. That's what it's supposed to be. Not to create injustice and not to create chaos, which is what our leaders are doing. I mean, the way they corruptly, continually just make up money to fund wars. And that's on the back of the poor. That is totally on the back of the poor. And you know it when you go to the grocery store because everyone's got to buy food. No man has to eat much more than any other. Not really. You know what I mean? And if you eat good food, you won't eat as much as you'll eat a lot less. I noticed that. Because when you eat just normal food, like just things that lived not too long ago and that aren't processed and filled with all kinds of weird ingredients. Like if you don't know anytime I look on something that has ingredients that I don't really know what it is, I'm like, I don't want to get this. Now we do get a few things like that because it's hard to avoid all that stuff. Unless you get into doing all your own, you got to break all your bread from scratch, all this from scratch. It gets to be quite a burden. But if you can, you're wise to do it because the things they're feeding people are not good. The things they're offering as food in the grocery stores, they're using more and more strange and exotic ingredients that a lot of them are just actually formerly waste products. That doesn't necessarily mean because it was a waste product that it can't be used for some good. I mean, I was in the waste recycling business for years. I mean, gasoline was a waste product in the manufacture of kerosene. They used to just burn it off. It was too volatile. They didn't know what to do with it until someone invented the internal combustion engine. Thou shalt not delay to offer the first of thy ripe fruits and of thy liquors. I don't know what the word liquors is, if that is like wine and liquor. Alcohol? What does that mean? First fruit liqueurs. It says dema, juice, which may refer to either fermented or non-fermented juices. Often they were turned into wine. Like I said, their wine would have been a bit more less. You'd have to drink a lot more wine to get drunk. And it's never forbidden because that was the common drink. But drunkenness is certainly discouraged in the New Testament. You know, be not drunken with wine, but be filled with the Spirit. Okay, let's see what we got. We only got a little bit left here. Do not delay to offer your first ripe fruits, and of thy liquors, the firstborn of thy sons shalt thou give unto me. Remember that he had to be redeemed. They talk about that. Holding these things back, delaying in them, it is not done in good conscience. It means you're hesitating because you don't really want to. Offer your best to God, and without delay. You know, offer your best to God without delay of all that you produce and sanctify your children to him. You know, again, to me, offering my sons means making sure that we raise them right in the ways of God, that they be good people that abide by righteous standards, that know the Lord, that know how to act. You know, that your firstborn son be not some ungodly heathen. Likewise with your ox and with your sheep, 7 days it shall be with his dam, and on the 8th day shalt thou give it to me. Interesting. Like meaning that you let it, you know, after, you don't take it right after it was born and offer it, but the first one, the first ox, the firstborn of each animal, like you have a cow, and the firstborn gives to the Lord. You know, and you don't take that for yourself. It belongs to me. It's God's price. And that is, to a Christian, that's symbolic of, like I said, Christ doesn't ask us to give 10% or just our firstborn. He asks all. All. We give ourselves completely. Our very bodies are a living sacrifice offered to him, holy and acceptable. You shall be holy men, because he was offered, he was the firstborn of all. And now, this is all really kind of passed away as for any sort of, I don't have to sort it out entirely. I just need to understand the principles and take the instruction on the 8th day. You don't take the calf away immediately either. That's kind of cruel. At least let it, and besides, it's, let it live 7 days. The 8th day, you give it to the Lord. And again, God says, I kill and I make alive. He gave life to all things, and he can declare when all things should cease. It's perfectly within his prerogative. I think it's funny when I remember people say, the Old Testament God is genocidal. God is the one who has the right to commit genocide, and does. He kills us all. He kills us all and will, except for those who remain to the end. If you should be one of those. Those who are alive and remain to the end, we will not all sleep, but we will be changed. And ye shall be holy men unto me. You neither shall eat any flesh that is torn of beasts in the field. You shall cast it to the dogs. You don't eat things that are strange meats. And again, it's not about, though that's good advice, as far as from a pragmatic standpoint, yeah, you wouldn't want to eat like a carcass you just found road killed. Probably not okay. Might be okay. I don't know, right? As far as like for pragmatic reasons, you might cook it and eat it and have no harm. All right. But it wasn't about that. And so these rules are not about your health so much as they are about your spiritual, about being a peculiar people. I consider those kind of commands actually to be arbitrary. Even if there is some practical thing behind it, it's not set out that way. It says you don't do this. You're going to be holy. You're going to be sanctified. That's what it means to be a saint, to be a holy one. It's like, well, wait a second, I'm not holy. Well, you're sanctified by the blood of Jesus. You are holy whether you like it or not. So you start acting like it. That's the thing. That's pretty much the whole ethic right there. You're holy whether you like it or not, so you should start acting like it, Follow that. We will be holy men if we do all the things God has asked us to do. Well, what are all those things? We got to learn. We got to learn. All right. So throw it to the dogs. I almost feel like there's some sort of like symbolic meaning that I don't know. I can't, it's not coming to me. I almost want to see it, but we're out of time. We're not out of time, but we're virtually out of time. And anyways, we're at the end of the chapter. So we'll pick it up at chapter 23 tomorrow. Until then, remember, the testimony of Jesus is the spirit of prophecy.
I have chosen the way of the truth. Thy judgments have I laid before me. I have stuck to thy testimonies. O Lord, put me not to shame. I will run the way of thy commandments. When thou shalt enlarge my heart. Lord, the way of thy statutes, and I shall keep it unto the end. Give me understanding, and I shall keep thy law. Yea, I shall observe it with my whole heart.